And Minister Hardeman have more to announce. But first, our host would like to say a few words. Neil and Colleen grow grain and raise cattle right here. They work hard, use every tool, and help feed the province and the country. It's a great pleasure to introduce Neil Craven. Neil, over to you.
Thank you and welcome. On behalf of my wife Colleen, sons Richard and Kyle and their families, welcome to our farm. We are excited to have you with us here today, Premier Ford, Honorable Ernie Hardeman, Minister Monty McNaughton, and MPP Rick Nichols. We are part of the fifth generation of Cravens, with the sixth and seventh generation on the ground now. To be farming in this great part of our country, where we grow some of the 85 different crops that help fill the grocery store shelves in the meat cases of Canada. We are here with some stakeholders from the agri-food industry to hear today's announcement from our Agriculture Minister. Thank you all for taking the time and for driving the distance to be with us today. We hope you enjoy your time here and have a safe drive back home. Thanks again. And now I'd like to welcome to the podium Premier Doug Ford.
That's great. Well, good afternoon, folks, and thank you, Neil. Earlier today, following weeks of negotiations, Canada's premiers reached a historic agreement with our federal counterparts. This agreement will see over $19 billion in desperately needed COVID-19 relief funding flow to Canada's provinces and municipalities. This funding will support us as we get the economy going over the next 6 to 8 months, with Ontario's share sitting at approximately $7 billion. My friends, this is good. This is great, actually, not even good. This is a great deal for Canada, and it's a great deal for Ontario. I want to thank my counterparts from across the nation. During this hour of the greatest need, Canada's premiers stood shoulder to shoulder. We stayed together as a country, as Canadians. And this historic agreement proves what we can do as a nation when we stand united. I want to thank the Prime Minister for his leadership and continued support for all Canadians. The federal government is stepping up and supporting Canadians when we need it most. I specifically want to thank and recognize the incredible work of my great friends, Deputy Prime Minister Freeland and Premier Scott Moe, Chair of the Council of Federation. This deal will see billions of dollars flow to the provinces to support municipalities, transit systems, healthcare systems at a time when it is needed most. These funds will help expand testing and contact tracing, stockpile PPE, provide critical supports for mental health and addictions. They will help our municipal partners and transit agencies continue to provide critical services. And I have to thank Ontario's 444 mayors for their unwavering support throughout these critical negotiations. I want to give a special thanks to Mayor Tory for all his support during the negotiations. My friends, make no mistake, by standing united, by standing together as a province, Ontario was in a very strong position to get the deal we needed with the federal government. Again, I want to thank my fellow premiers. We have an incredible group of premiers in this country, and today's historic agreement is proof of that. More than ever, Canada stands united, strong and free, because during these difficult days, we have to support each other. We have to make sure that every community in Ontario, every family, every worker gets back on their feet. And that's why I'm so happy to be here in beautiful Chatham with our Agriculture Minister, Ernie Hardeman, Minister of Labor, Monty McNaughton, MPP Rick Nichols, and Mayor Darren Caniff, and with the hardworking folks here at Craven Farms. Neil and his wife, they tell me this is their 6th generation, as you heard from Neil, 7th's on the ground already. So what an incredible family these folks are. And I'll tell you, our farmers are the best of the best. These people are salt of the earth. During this pandemic, dedicated farmers like the Craven family have risen to the challenge to make sure food keeps getting from farm to fork. My friends, this pandemic has been hard on all of us, but it's been especially difficult for our incredible farmers. And as a province, we should all be so proud of our amazing farmers and how they've risen to the occasion. Grain farmers, egg farmers, dairy farmers, beef, chicken, and pork farmers, and fruit and vegetable growers. They've all been working around the clock and against the odds to keep getting food to our tables. They've been purchasing PPE and taking steps to enhance safety. And when we faced outbreaks on a handful of farms, the farming sector was incredible. They stepped up to the plate. They worked with us to bring mobile testing units to farms and implement health measures that have been absolutely critical to keeping farm workers safe. And this response gives consumers confidence that when they need to pick up bread, eggs, or milk, these products will be there when they need them. That's why the moment the virus started spreading our farms, we took immediate action to protect our farmers, their workers, and our food supply chain. We expanded testing on farms. We brought in additional workplace guidance. We reassured workers that no one would lose their job if they tested positive for COVID-19. Go Transit helped us transport 200 workers back and forth from farms so they could self-isolate and stay safe. Because this is a government that stands with our farmers. We stand with our workers. And as long as I'm Premier in Ontario, no one will be left behind. Folks, the good people at Masternardi Barbershop in Leamington have finally hung up their sign that says, open for business. And this morning, Henry, who has had this barbershop for 56 years in Leamington, gave me a great haircut. My friends, businesses are opening their doors in Windsor, Essex. People are going back to work. All of Ontario is now on the path to recovery. And tomorrow, 24 regions in the province will move to stage 3 of reopening, with the rest of the province not far behind. And I won't stop until every person, every worker, every community, and every farmer in Ontario is back on their feet. I want our farmers and our farming communities to know that as Premier, I will always have your back. We know this pandemic has hit our farming communities hard. They need stability, income security, and peace of mind. And that's why today I'm here to announce that our government will be providing an additional $50 million every year to our agriculture risk management program. During the last campaign, I made a promise to farmers that we would have their backs and expand this program in 2021. Today, we're accelerating this commitment by 1 year to help our farmers get back on their feet as quickly as possible. Going forward, we will support farmers through this program with a total investment of $150 million every single year. This funding will support farmers with unforeseen challenges such as fluctuating market prices, disease, or extreme weather events like flooding or drought. And that's why, along with Minister Hardeman and our partners from the farming sector, I wrote a letter to the Prime Minister to ask for his support in helping our farmers address the challenges they face. Whether it's purchasing PPE for our farms or additional supports through our agri-stability program, we need their help. We all have a part to play in keeping our farms and our food supply chain strong, because a strong farming sector is critical for a strong province. It's critical for all of us. I want to thank you, and God bless the people of Ontario, and God bless the greatest farmers in the world right here in Ontario. Thank you, and I'll pass it over to Minister Hardeman now.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Premier, and good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here today with Premier Ford, Monty McNaughton, the MPP for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex, and Rick Nichols, the MPP for Chatham, Kent, Leamington. I'd like to thank Neil and Colleen Craven very much for hosting us today. I also want to welcome some of the heads of some of our province's agriculture organizations: the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, Christian Farmers of Ontario, Ontario Fruit and Vegetable Growers,
Ontario sheep, Ontario veal, beef farmers of Ontario, grain farmers of Ontario, and Ontario pork. Today, we are at one of the thousands of farms across the province where families and farm staff are working incredibly hard to keep food on our tables. One of the most important lessons of the COVID-19 emergency is the importance of our food supply chain and how much we rely on Ontario farmers to keep it strong. Premier Ford has often referred to the heroic frontline workers who have powered our provinces through the COVID-19 challenge, and our farmers stand proudly among them. Ontario's agriculture sector has had to deal with many unexpected challenges over the past few months, and there may be more uncertainties ahead. As the Premier mentioned a few months ago, that's why our government is supporting farmers facing unforeseen challenges with an immediate $50 million expansion of the risk management program. This means that starting this year, we'll be providing a total of $150 million to help farmers manage risk beyond their control. As the Premier said, funding for the risk management program supports farmers who face issues like fluctuating market prices, extreme weather events like flooding or drought, and disease. Today's announcement builds on our government's support for this critical sector in Ontario. Last week, we announced that our government is enhancing agri-insurance coverage for the 2020 growing season to include labor shortage due to COVID-19. And last month, we announced a $15 million expansion agri-food protection program to enhance health and safety measures on farms and in food processing facilities. COVID-19 has created many challenges for our farmers, including reduced processing capacity, increased costs, and volatile markets. But I have confidence in the agriculture sector and in the people who are so strongly committed to the work that they do. We've listened to the feedback from our farmers and producers, which is why we're taking action now to support them during this unprecedented time. Applications for risk management program will reopen today. I encourage eligible farmers to apply if they need support. Our farmers play a critical role in producing safe, nutritious food for our kitchen tables. And today, we're helping them to continue their critical work. Thank you again for being here this afternoon.
That's great. Well, before I start, I'm gonna have a sip of water first. Before I start, I was over in Kingsville and Leamington, and talk about salt of the earth people. These people are absolutely incredible. I went and visited quite a few people, and I went over to Jack's, the restaurant. You know, what a great group of people over there. I want to thank Trevor and Heather from the Maine. You folks from Toronto and around Ontario, you want a great place to visit? Visit Leamington, visit Kingsville. They have wineries, breweries, beautiful shops, beautiful places to grab a bite to eat and have a cold pop on the patio, and they're incredible people. So please, you know, these folks have had a tough time over the last few weeks, actually last few months. And please just go pay them a visit. And I can't wait to come back and bring my family and friends to visit Jack's and the Maine. So please come and visit this great part of the province. So we'll start off with the questions.
We're going to go to the phone line for questions. Just a reminder, it's one question, one follow-up.
First question comes from Rob Hindy from AM 800 Radio Windsor. Please go ahead.
Hi, Rob.
The question for the Premier. Hello, Premier. I'm
Right.
just wondering, I spoke to Unifor Local 444 President Dave Cassidy today. He told me that he's been requesting a meeting with you from Easter Monday 2019 in regards to the third shift at the Windsor Assembly Plant. The shift came to an end last Friday. He's disappointed that you have time to come to the region to get a haircut, but don't have time to meet with him and other union officials. Just want to get your thoughts on that, please.
Well, first of all, I want to apologize to Tim, and I'll make sure I get to Windsor, and I'll make sure we give him a call. And you know something, we have to be competitive here in Ontario. We have to cut more regulations, more red tape to make ourselves competitive. And folks, I've always said we're an economic powerhouse. We're competing against everyone in the world now. It's us versus them. Make no mistake about it. But we do $390 billion of two-way trade. And we have to make sure that we're more competitive than Michigan, than Ohio, than New York State. And I'll make sure I reach out to Jerry Diaz from Unifor, speak to him. I'll speak to Chrysler to see what the province can do to save the third shift there, because nothing's more important than having people be able to go to work, put food on the table, pay their mortgages. And I'll make sure we sit down and have a chat with them. And when I'm back in Windsor, we'll go and pay him a visit.
Follow up.
Just your message to the residents of Windsor Essex. The pandemic obviously has taken a hit on businesses in the area, but now with the elimination of the third shift, 1,500 plus jobs or workers are going to lose their jobs if you include the feeder plants. Just your message to Windsor Essex.
Well, my friends, we're there behind you. And again, right before, I just want to remind everyone, right before this pandemic, every person I talked to in this province, every business, small, medium, or large, we were short people. I remember sending a letter to the Prime Minister saying, we need more people. And I think the letter came back and he said, well, we'll give you 60 more people. I need 250,000 people. We're going to get back to that point. We're going to lead North America as we did prior to this pandemic in economic growth and job creation. But the only way you do it is by getting the government out of the way. You have to create the environment that we're competing against places in the USA, places over in China, other places around the world. We are an economic powerhouse. I always say we're the #1 trading partner in the world to the United States. We buy more products off the US than China, Japan, and the UK together. That's why I'm always promoting when you're going down the shopping aisle, if you're in one of the grocery stores or one of the hardware stores, I ask the manufacturers, and we're kicking this off last week, as you've seen, put the Ontario made logo, put the made in Canada, put a Maple Leaf there, because we can change the buying habits of people by 1 out of 10. That's billions and billions of dollars and thousands, if not tens of thousands of jobs. As I said, we do about $390 billion, and it's pretty well equally split down the middle. We can compete against the US. We have the smartest and the brightest people anywhere. We can manufacture anything right here in Ontario. And when it came to these masks, I'll never forget when President Trump basically cut us off, the whole world was scrambling to get PPE, and I swore this would never happen again. 3 months later, in 3 months, and I don't get this credit, all the manufacturers do, switched over the lines. We have 23 companies right here in Ontario that are producing millions of these surgical masks, N95 masks, making face shields, making surgical gowns, hand sanitizer. So we're doing it. And I give all the credit to the people. We are unstoppable as a province when we're all pulling in the same direction. We'll compete against anyone in the world.
Next question.
Next question comes from Jacob Barker from CBC Windsor. Please go ahead.
Hello, Premier. You spoke a little bit about the different responses that you've been giving to the farmers and how are you going to support them. In recent days, local leaders have been calling on your government to provide oversight when it comes to the outbreaks on farming facilities in the region. Will you heed the call to appoint a coordinator to oversee the different agencies involved in responding to the outbreaks on farms in Leamington and Kingsville?
So first of all, when it comes to Kingsville and Leamington, I want to thank and give a shout out to two great leaders there, Mayor Santos and Mayor McDonald. I met with both of them today, and they went through tough times, but they showed true leadership through this pandemic, and just making sure that the people down in Leamington and Kingsville know that we're standing behind them. And I'll give you an example. We have Ontario Health. It's like we have the cavalry down in Leamington and Kingsville. We have Ontario Health. We have our talk team down here. We have Ontario Public Health down here. We have the Ministry of Health down here. We have Emergency Services Ontario down in Leamington and Kingsville. We have the Ministry of Labor going in and doing inspections, working with the farmers to help them. You know what I don't like, and Monty knows this, he's the Minister of Labor. I don't like Ministry of Labor going in there and try to muscle people. They're there to help you. They're there to work with you. They aren't there to punish you. And if people are punishing you, you got to call my office. But that's what we need down here. We have Ernie Hardeman working with OMAFRA and all the other agencies. And we're working closely with the farmers and the workers. So it's all hands on deck right now. We're throwing everything in the kitchen sink at this issue. And again, I want to give the credit to the farmers, not the government. It's always the frontline people, and the farmers are facing it. They're the ones that get the credit, and the workers too. Guys, these workers came here. They're trying to help us. They aren't bad people. They're good people. They're trying to make a few dollars, put food on their table for their families too. And when they came here, they self-isolated for 2 weeks. So you know something, you gotta support these workers, because if it wasn't for the farmers and if it wasn't for the workers, guess what? We wouldn't be having the food on the table that we have.
Follow up.
Well, sorry, just my specific question there was about appointing a coordinator to oversee all the different agencies. Are you thinking about doing that? Is that something you're going to do?
Well, on Ontario Health, for the most part, is overseeing all the testing. And we have great leadership with Dr. Heyer, Matt Anderson, the CEO of Ontario Health. They have their teams down here, mobile testing units, working with the hospitals. We put one specific testing area up in a building, and we're doing everything we can. So I would say if there's one person that's overseeing everything, it would be the CEO, Matt Anderson at Ontario Health. And this guy's an all-star, and so is Dr. Heyer. They're both incredible people, and they're doing a great job. But we all need to work together to get through this.
Next question.
Next question comes from Jenna Kukulo from Chatham Voice. Please go
Jenna.
ahead.
How are you?
Hi, thank you. So about 10% of the migrant worker COVID-19 cases came from, Chatham, Kent, and obviously migrant workers are a huge part of our agriculture sector. Advocates want permanent status upon arrival for migrant workers and access to better health care. Do you think we need to start looking at reforming our migrant worker program? And are some of these solutions proposed by advocates something you would support?
When the workers come here, they have the exact same rights as any other worker in Ontario. They're covered by the Ontario labor laws, and as they should be protected. If they get hurt, they're eligible as well for any compensation. If they need any help at the hospitals, their health care is taken care of. They can go into the hospitals. And if they worked here last year and for any reason they're unable to work and they end up getting COVID, then they can collect CERB, or they can collect the unemployment. But either way, it's critical. We have to work together, and it's not easy. Man, my heart breaks for these farmers. They went through a terrible stint there for a few months, and still we have to be cautious. So we're going to do everything we can to protect the farmers and protect the workers, and I won't spare any expense to make sure that happens.
Follow up.
Yes, but some of the workers are afraid to go get help or go to the hospital because they're afraid of being deported or losing their job. So would you think that permanent status would kind of help them overcome that fear and get better access?
I've said over and over again, the federal government, deputy prime minister, no one's leaving. You aren't going to be kicked out. You don't have to be scared. No one's coming in. Put it this way, we aren't living in the US, and I love our American friends. But something, no one's going to come up and throw cuffs on them and say, see you later, Jack, you're going back to where you came from. We invited them here. They're productive. They're giving back to the community by working. And let's be very frank, the reason they're here is because a lot of folks here don't want that job. It's a tough job. Something, I can't say, I'm first to admit, I couldn't be out in the fields working like these folks do. I just couldn't. So, something, God bless them. They're here and they're giving back to the community. And yes, we've had a few bumps in the road, but listen, everyone in the world has a few bumps in the road. And considering the situation Ontario is in, and I say it always, we're number one with the lowest cases in North America, and the fewest cases per 100,000 people for any jurisdiction our size. And again, the people of Ontario, the 14.5 million people, they get the credit. I don't need the credit. I play the smallest part in this. Our ministers don't need it. It's the people. Without them, I wouldn't be able to do my job.
Next question.
Next question comes from Sean Jeffords from the Canadian Press.
Hi,
Please
Sean.
go ahead.
Good afternoon, Premier. Wanted to ask you about the agreement between the federal government and the provinces today. You are lauding this as a really good deal, a win for the province. If I heard you correctly, you said $7 billion is headed to the province. But a month ago, you said Ontario has a $23 billion problem when it comes to COVID-related costs. And those two numbers are very far apart. I'm wondering why you believe this deal is a good deal for Ontario today, and what has persuaded you to think that over the last week or so?
Well, first of all, I want to thank all the premiers. You know, from coast to coast to coast, we have the greatest nation in the world. We all work together, and it just goes to show you, when you're collaborative and you work together and throughout these political stripes, it drives me crazy. I don't care if you're an NDP or if you're Green or if you're conservative or liberal, you know, this isn't the time for politics. And we all work together. We worked hard. We worked hard all night and all this morning. And I got to give a special thanks to a really good friend of mine, Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, Scott Moe, the chair of the Federation. They're doing great. And let's make no mistake about it, folks. You know something? At the end of the day, the Prime Minister had the final say in this. And he pulled through, in my opinion, with spades. He came up, he stepped up, true leadership. When, you know, when you're negotiating within the family, and I call it within the family, things get a little bumpy. But if it wasn't for leadership of Scott Moe, Chrystia Freeland, and the great job of giving us the green light with the Prime Minister, this wouldn't happen. Again, I played the smallest part in it. It's everyone else deserves the credit. So I'm so happy we were able to get a deal. And all the premiers, we have a phenomenal group of premiers across this province. And again, when we're all pulling in the same direction, this country's unstoppable. Greatest country in the world, bar none.
Follow up.
Premier, on another subject, I'm hoping you can clarify a comment that Minister McLeod made this afternoon on a radio station in Ottawa about the Toronto Blue Jays. She seemed to suggest the Blue Jays have been given clearance by your government to play home games at the Rogers Centre this summer. Is that true? And why has the government decided to go in that direction?
Well, we got a approval from the municipal, the city chief medical officer, and we made sure that we discussed it with Mayor Tory as well. We discussed it with the chief medical officer of Canada, and along with the deputy prime minister. And on top of it, we talked to Dr. Williams and our team, our medical team. And yes, I look forward to seeing them play, even if it's in an empty stadium. I think we need, you know, a little bit of sports back on television, and I can't wait to watch the Blue Jays, and I can't wait to watch the Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup, because they're going to be playing here as well. But if folks, have you seen the protocol? I think the Major League Baseball was 150 pages, and I don't think the NHL was far behind them. Talk about strict. They're even probably stricter than our chief medical officers, but they have great protocol, great guidelines for the players to follow. And let's hope we do well this year in both sports.
Last question.
Last question comes from Karen Davidson from The Grower. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. This
Hi.
is a question for Minister Ernie Hardeman.
Right.
And just one question. I'd like to know if this announcement today changes Ontario's position on lobbying the federal government to proceed with meaningful improvements to the agri-stability program.
Well, thank you very much for that question. And I think it's so important to recognize that the challenges that our agriculture community is facing requires not only the support they're getting from the provincial government, but we need more support from the federal government through the Ag Stability Program. I've met as recently as Monday with the minister to talk about continuing that negotiation of how we can improve that Ag Stability Program that will help our farmers. Everyone, as the Premier mentioned, the letter we sent to the Prime Minister, every one of our agriculture community members signed that letter, all the stakeholders, that they believe that the federal government should step up and along with the provinces, make the changes that they've been asking for in the Ag Stability Program. So it will be the protection they need when they hit times like we have this year. So, and no, this doesn't mean the end of that negotiation. In fact, it means a restart of the intensive activity we will all be placing in, and that's why all our agriculture community is here to support this announcement today. We all will be working together to improve the ag stability program for our farmers.
Follow up?
That's it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Well, that's great. Again, I want to thank Neil and Colleen and the Craven family. You guys are incredible. Thank you for hosting us today, and just the community here. I just, fall in love with the Chatham, Kent, Leamington area, and especially the folks from Leamington and Kingsville. I encourage you, come and visit these great people. You can literally, in Leamington, Kingsville, maybe here in Chatham, you can drive down the street, you can buy your strawberries, you can buy fruit, you can buy vegetables, tomato, it's great. And John Icabelli and his dad, Henry, we went to Sunbright, one of the largest canning facilities in the country when it comes to tomato paste and everything. They're an incredible family, an incredible company. These are the people that I just think the world of. So thank you, and God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.